So the first thing I'm going to do is what? Reference material. Very important to include, otherwise you won't have that level of coolness in your artwork that you're looking for.
So,
You know, yep. Yes. Yep. So you're going to, we're going to basically do a brand new thumbnail sketch, and then I'm going to, the difference with this one is that I'm actually going to show you how to take it to the next level and begin articulating it, right? So, you know, the thumbnail sketch portion is just a recap for you guys so that you, again, get to see the process from start to finish. And then we'll take it to a level which is a bit more a resemblance of this. Yep, so A3. Yep.
I need help with something here. This was happening to me last time when I was working on the other. Basically, it's not the tablet because it's plenty of times.
Yep.
It draws on its own even when the pen's not near it, so it's always connecting. And none of the buttons work. Like I can't resize the brackets.
Quotation mark.
Yeah, I keep separating them.
It's an old one, I think.
No, I don't think there was any old ones with the button.
Alright, give me a look.
Pretty nice.
I was working on
Look, it's just it draws and then look, it just connects and that doesn't work. That doesn't work.
I had that and it's
I can't
when I
look.
took Zero stuff and I thought that.
Try, what we've done.
It's the button that
Sure seemed frustrated. That's why I was in here till 6 with the fucking earlier.
Was it just the computer and that tablet?
How much money?
Working?
That's ridiculous.
I keep separating that pen.
Alright.
I keep separating that from the tablets, and it always ends up back in the box.
Is that a good pen?
Okay, guys.
That's because it's got a button and like rubber on it. That means it's a good pen.
Not that easy. Please.
So what I'm doing here is I'm finding reference images that, you know, actually have some interesting looking elements in them. I mean, for me, I've never seen a swamp with these kind of weird things in it, and it just looked very alien to me. It does look like, you know, some kind of swampy planet that, you know, you might be traversing through and come across these weird, I don't even know what's on the end of these things. They look like mushrooms or something. But I like it, so I'm going to add it in there. And I'm actually going to rotate my canvas 90 degrees, place in the reference material, and enlarge it like so. Just a little bit. And I'm basically going to just put all of my references onto the one layer so that I can easily switch them on and off. Switch them on when I need them and switch them off when I don't need them. Yep.
How do we have the Navigator tab inside?
The Navigator, if you go up into Photoshop's window menu, you'll see the Navigator in there. Just make sure it's ticked on.
Oh, yep, alright.
Okay,
Thanks.
so let's find a few others. Like, this is interesting to me. I like with the swamp how the entire ground is sometimes covered with a combination of like just green algae and water, and that's like the surface. Like, that's cool to me. Looks like some kind of radioactive spill. And I think that's kind of something that I want to come across in this next environment painting. Because, you know, we're dealing with aliens here, weird looking frogs that look like they've been through some changes, mutations, etc. So this could be a good look. So I'm going to place that in there. You'll notice these references kind of tend to have a running theme here. And that's the other thing I wanted to point out. I'm always kind of into this referencing philosophy. But I think that, you know, as an artist, certain references you'll be drawn to that other artists won't be drawn to. Okay, so in a way, even if you are referencing something and you're taking inspiration from another source, that source is still something that you're drawn to individually. Okay, meaning that it's still pretty original. Kind of like, you know, you might be influenced by somebody and someone else might be influenced by something completely different. If that makes any sense. Alright, so what else can I find here? Sometimes you can pick other people's concept art as long as you're not, you know, full on ripping it off. But let's take a look.
beauty is the detail
Yeah.
in the not so detail.
Yeah, yeah.
You gotta get detail with simple brush strokes.
Oh,
create a
totally.
brush, you know?
And it's almost like you're indicating detail. You're not really, necessarily putting it in there.
Yeah.
The more brush strokes, the more detail you're going to have. I like this. This is pretty cool. Maybe I could add some kind of boat or vehicle into my concept.
Cool.
Alright, let's take a look at this one. Oh, here we go. So here's some more of those weird growths coming out the ground.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Are they?
Yeah.
Well, whatever they are, I think they look cool. They kind of look like mangroves or something, I guess.
Decayed trees or whatever that's kind of fallen over.
And there's one last one that I want to actually put in there, which I had last week, in fact. And that is this one. I really liked. And the reason I like this one so much is, again, it's those trees. They're just so eerie and spooky looking. So I'm going to copy that. Place it in here.
Oh, so you've done studies on armor?
Kind of.
Kind of difficult.
Yeah.
Armor's a really difficult
It's
thing to
very
nail down.
chromy. Very chromy.
Yeah.
Alright, so references. Now I'm going to name this layer and I'm just going to call it references.
I just stuck it all on the folder.
Or you can stick it all in a folder. And yeah, now I'm going to actually zoom out heaps. And of course I've got my Navigator open over here. And I'm going to begin to paint. So let's do it. This is going to basically be very much a similar process to what we went over last week. The first step was to actually place in a color which would basically set the mood and the overall color tone of the canvas. You guys remember that? So I'm going to go with something gray. I like gray tones a lot. I'll go for thinking maybe like an orangey green. Yeah, I've got a bit of an idea as to what I'm going to do. So I'll place that in there. And then I'm going to create a new layer above that. And I'm going to go back to my color picker. And I'm going to pick some more colors over here. And this time I'm going to go for some kind of yellowy grays. Grey greens. Like so. And I'm going to sit and I'm going to think for a little bit about what it is I want to convey. So I'm thinking like kind of like little islands with maybe some walkways or bridges stretching between them. So I wanted to make it look like, if you've ever seen the Predators movie, they've kind of, or played the Predator games, they've got like this rainforesty environment with little bases set up for the soldiers. So I'm thinking maybe I'll go for something like that, just to make it a bit more interesting.
Sorry, I was
Yep.
asking them because I wasn't here last. Why
Mm.
aren't we doing a Word document on the environment?
You guys did do that last week at the start of class. You were supposed to have anyway. Yes, we spent like a few minutes doing it. Wasn't a big deal.
We did all do it.
We did.
Same thing a couple of
I'm pretty sure we did. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead now and just start laying down colors here. Just compositions basically. So again, because this is going to be, I guess, more islands and stuff, I think I'm going to place in some of this algae here. So I'll put this on top. So we got like a kind of like a green surface here that the islands pop out of almost. So I'm going to basically try to convey that. Alright. You can see that this green kind of mixes in with the orange and stuff, and what I'm thinking is to have like a nice warm afternoon / sunrise lighting scheme. You know, maybe some light shining through the sky. That's right. Yeah, probably. Alright, so we've got that. And basically, wherever this green mass ends is going to be where my horizon line is. So I'm going to leave it about there. Looks pretty good. And then what I'll do is I'll pick some darker tones and make sure that the colors that I'm picking are blending in with the current color, making sure that they're complementing one another. That just simply means that they look good together. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and create that. I'm going to go back to my reference here and kind of like going to have a look. So I'm thinking we'll have some islands over here, right? So I have an island in the foreground, an island in the middle ground over here, and maybe an island in the background, right? And again, this is a very, very primal composition that I'm creating here. Okay, this is my image in its infancy, and it's everything that I'm laying down now is going to be establishing the detail that will be added on top later on. Okay, so I'm going to go for, again, I always like this algae kind of mushroom look to my rock formations, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. You know, out in the distance I might have some more kind of formations. You can see I'm just laying in these shapes, and that's very much what I'm focused on, getting the right shapes and forms down, you know. And I might have another one here. And you can see I've actually done a larger one here because it's closer to the foreground, and as things come towards you, what happens? They tend to get bigger, right? Okay, you can see already there's some depth that's actually being created there, right? So let's go back to the reference here, and we'll zoom in a little bit just so that we can see what's going on. So one thing I really like is I like these textures here. And I like the way that these plants have started growing on top of the forms that are coming out of the algae there. So I'm going to basically try to replicate that. I'm just going to steal it. And I might put some trees on the islands as well that look a bit more like this. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, working from a distance is super important, guys. Why is that? Yeah, you don't want to get caught up on a single detail. You want to make sure that you have an overall view of how the entire image is coming together as a whole. Okay, so let's switch this on and off. Yeah, it is. And, you know, the thing is, I'm putting the reference into the context of the idea, not the idea into the context of the reference. Does that make sense? So it's very important to always keep that in mind. You're not copying the reference, it's not determining your idea. You're using it to help flesh out your idea. Alright? I'm going to select this, and I'm going to try blending some colors together here actually. So and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try and really get some of those textures in there that I was observing on here, right? So they kind of got this grainy, barky looking material, and I think that'll be nice for this in particular. So I'm going to go ahead and just begin kind of placing that in there. Right. Select this color up here, this darker tone, and I'm going to place kind of like layers in here. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm just going to add in some textures underneath this rock. And you can see how, you know, the forms begin to just basically come about. And this is only the beginning. Like, all of these little details I'm putting in now are going to have even more littler details, right? Basically, as we add in more detail, we're just upping the resolution. Okay. And again, I'm going to select this color here. And I'm just going to place it on top here. Again, just to separate the top planes of these forms from the bottom. Place another one up here, another one over here. And I'm going to go ahead and again add some lighter tones to the top here just to separate the forms. Like so. So to separate forms, it's literally just think about where the lighter face of your form is sitting and where the darker face is going to be. And when you put them against one another, you'll be able to separate them. Okay, as you can see, the top plane here is completely separate from this bottom plane. Yeah, so it's in darkness. Let's go ahead and just kind of paint that out. And of course, it looks a bit simple at the moment, so we're going to go in there and make sure that we detail it up, make it all nice and juicy looking. And once I've done that, I'm going to go back to my reference, see what other cool and interesting shapes I can glean from this. Yeah, so I'm going to actually go ahead now and find a sky which has a bit more warmer colors in it. So sunset. Awesome. So you can see how yellow that sky actually is, which is exactly what I want for this. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to select this, take it down to an even darker tone. Just going to begin, you know, blending some of these areas out.
Trying to look at images that have fences or anything that keeps a steady pattern all the way down the image adds a lot more perspective to it.
Yeah,
to the
big.
eye.
Yeah, totally. Alright, so then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in some even brighter, like clouds and stuff, I guess, to this. Looking pretty good to me. I'll go ahead now and again separate some of these forms. So I'm going to have a lighter face here, lighter face here. It is a yellowish tone at the moment. Well, it's brown, but it's got a yellow undertone. And yep, then I'm just going to go ahead and begin painting in some of these textures underneath the rock, underneath the top surface of the rock. Just scribbling it in, guys. And you know, take note of the size of my brush as well. It's quite small, right? What I'm doing is I'm placing in very subtle lines. Okay. And I'm trying to create a texture with it. Trying my best anyway. And the cool thing is you can go in and you can begin, like, you know, adding in extra layers. So I might add in some new kind of platforms up here, like so. And some new platforms up here. Yeah. Okay, and it's starting to kind of come together now, which is awesome. Now we'll go back here and just take a look at what else we can use. Zoom in a little bit here. So I think at this point we can go ahead and start adding in some trees. Right after we go ahead and put in some overlays. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Just going to zoom out a bit again. Oh, and you remember I said before I wanted to have some kind of walkways around here, you know, maybe like little bases and stuff. So let's add some of those in there just for fun. So what I'll do is just going to select one of these darker tones, take my brightness down, and basically place in a bridge. That's the idea. Of course it looks large. Yeah, it's supposed to. And that's a good lesson for you guys, is that, you know, when you can place something in there that is somewhat human sized or can be interpreted as human sized, it'll give scale to your environment. Yeah. No. Apparently they're huge. So I'm going to place in some kind of structures over here.
You see all the concept art and all the work done for Mortal Kombat and the Crew. Feeling like it.
Yeah.
All the landscapes, and they've used the dolls and they put them in the key pose, just humans to get an idea of perspective and stuff.
Oh yeah, totally.
And about the characters, the variations they do is just ridiculous, the amount of variation you do for this character.
Oh yeah, I know, it's crazy.
But it's really cool stuff to look at.
It is very inspirational. Okay, cool. So we got some structures over here. And yeah, as Troy said, like once you get those human elements in there, it gives scale to your entire environment. You can make it look very small, can make it look very big. But unless you do have those elements in there, no one really knows. Could be the size of a doll's house. Might be the size of a planet. Okay, so I'll add in some more kind of algae here. And again, this is another really cool way to come up with an interesting design, is just to scale everything up, right? I mean, it's one thing to have, like, you know, a normal sized dog, and it's another thing to have a dog the size of a bus, right? Suddenly you got a cool design. Yeah. Alright, so let's go ahead and add in some more kind of elements in here. Okay. Again, I'm just going off the references that I've got here. I like these little things that just pop out. And yeah, you get a real sense of like what this place is now. So I'm going to go in now, and I'm going to basically add in those overlays. So again, for overlay shadows, we're going to use a new layer with a layer mode set to multiply. And I'm going to change my brush to an airbrush. And I'm going to pick a nice blue tone to go over the top of it with. Alright. And then I'm just going to place it in there. This is actually set to color burn. We want it to be multiply. And of course, at the moment, it still looks pretty simplistic. You know, this environment. There's nothing that special about it just yet, but we are going to go in there and really iron everything out. Once we've done that, of course, we can go in and create a highlight overlay, which will basically add lighting to our light source. Sorry, color to our light source, rather. gonna blow it up a bit. And that's exactly what I was looking for. Yeah, some nice tones like that. Yeah, I'll save it. Whoa. Alright. So now I've got a really nice color palette to play around with now. As you can see, it makes all the difference. Yeah, it just enriches those colors in very beautiful ways. So what we'll do now is, I actually want to put some trees in here because I think that'd be awesome. So, oh, and some grass. Remember I was going to add the grass to these things? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to begin painting in some grass or some leaf type materials. But the other thing I want you guys to get as well is that I've also zoomed in a bit, okay, because I'm working, and I'm now working at a higher level of detail. Just going to go in and begin basically scribbling these details in. Like so. Now there is actually brushes out there that you can use. There's a good one called Goro's Brushes. Brushes. And he uses them for some pretty cool environment stuff. Okay, so he's got some cool tutorials on here as well that you can check out. But if we just download, you can download his brushes right off of his website. It'll be the first link when you Google search Goro's Brushes. And it'll take a few seconds to do that. And we can go show in folder, Goro's Brushes, copy it to the desktop or somewhere that you're going to remember where it's saved. I'm going to put mine on the desktop. And simply go into your brushes library, go to the cog, load brushes, Goro's Brushes, and it'll add them to the bottom there. Yeah, and you get some really cool stuff like for example, maybe not that one. Like we could go in here and we can paint out some of this area. I don't know. There's some cool ones in here. Yeah, this one was always pretty cool. So this is pretty good for trees and shrubbery. So I'm just going to pick some darker tones. It does, yes. So we can go in here and I'm placing in some darker tones, as you can see. And then you can go in, put in some lighter tones, like so. And the amount of color that comes out is completely controlled by your brush sensitivity. Okay. So again, you can go up here. Go over here. And I don't know if you can see that and what it looks like, but yeah. It's just basically going to allow you to come up with interesting patterns. But I'm not going to use those too much. Maybe only around here, maybe some up here. You know, have like these shelves of plants. I don't know how I feel about it. It does look a bit like coral, doesn't it? Alright. And once I've done that, I can just paint those colours in that I've created. Alright, all those plants, I guess you could say. And you just kind of blend them in together, because sometimes, obviously, if you just put them in there with the brush, they may not turn out the way that you want them to. So you just kind of have to paint them in there. But they're good fun to try out, and I definitely recommend that you do try them out, just to see how you find them and whether or not you can use them. Like I said, every artist is going to work differently, and after a while, though you may start out with some of these techniques, you're inevitably going to create your own. You know, I know that was definitely for the case for me, and it's the case for almost every artist out there. They start from somewhere, you know, and eventually some things they keep and they take on board, and other things they just throw away. They try it out and it's not for them. And after a while you just begin to develop your own workflow. Okay, so we've got some plant action going on down here.
So, seeing as it's an environment for your frog, did you ever paint like something in the distance, just as
Frogs?
abstract figures, or?
I don't know, maybe. Because they're very tiny, the
Yeah,
concept.
something like, so you wouldn't ever see much detail, a bit like those trees, just.
Put a lily pad there in the middle.
Maybe. Alright. So once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and again darken up some of these areas.
Are those like rocks on the side or trees?
Over here,
The one you painted, is that like a rock face?
it's kind of like, it's more like a plant type thing.
Plant?
Yeah, kind of like these things here.
Oh, okay, yep.
Kind of. Going here. And again, you want to really balance out some of these shadows as well, because you know, it depends on the form that you're trying to describe. You want to make sure that you're getting across the thing that you want to get across. Okay, so once we've done that, the other thing that we can do is, of course, add in some fog. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that before we move any further on. Take our airbrush and I'm basically going to put some fog in here. Put some fog there. Maybe some fog here. Alright. What that's going to do is it's going to help separate the forms and create some distance between them. Okay, so now if I select this tone, for example, it's going to come out a lot darker, right? Because of the fog in the background, which again is sometimes what you want. Alright, so let's go ahead and begin detailing out some of these areas and finessing the design. Okay, so this is basically the next level up, right? We've got our idea pretty much down. Now it's time to go in there and begin refining it. And, you know, making sure that everything, you know, all these forms and the different planes and stuff that are facing away from the light and toward the light are all 100% defined. Okay, so you can see I'm making sure that this dark underface of the rock is in shadow, while the top one is lighter. Okay, you can see that it begins to separate things. So again, I'm just scribbling it in there, like, and I think that's what the biggest thing for me is that, you know, when it comes to these environments, you don't have to worry about being a botanist. You know, you don't have to like draw every single plant like the exact way. You don't have to do 100 plant studies or anything. Most of it's just, as you can see, paint strokes, right? And you're more suggesting an idea or an element of your idea than articulating it in a photorealistic capacity. So yeah, don't stress too much about it and try to have fun with it. You know, that's ultimately the key. Stuff's supposed to be fun. You know, once you get past the hurdles to actually getting good with it. Okay. Now, I don't know if these are as mushroomy as I want them to be, so we'll have to see about that. So I want these top areas to kind of be like smooth almost. So I'm going to make sure that when I add in some of these highlight areas that that's the case. And now I'm just selecting some of these yellow tones to basically paint in. Here, making sure that I'm separating these with the lighter and darker tones. And again down here. Alright, let's go ahead and zoom in now. I think we're at a time in our painting when we can move up a few levels. So I think that as well, it'll be good to have some trees in here. So I'm going to go ahead, go back to my references and just take a look at these. Yeah.
Probably the yellow colour to it.
It kind of is, in a way. So let's go ahead and place in some trees now. Now the trees I do place in here, I've got to make sure that I'm placing them in an area which is not going to mess up the composition too much. I've also placed them on a separate layer just in case I do mess up, and if I do mess up I can just kind of get rid of that layer that they're on. Okay, so trees in the foreground, and of course I've got some trees in the foreground, so I'll put some trees over here too. Just so that the viewer knows what the deal is, right? Because if they see the trees over here, then they'll know that what's over here is trees also. And it's kind of leading the eye around the image, so their eye is going to start here, and then it'll go down here to this tree, right? That's what they call creating movement in your artwork. Put some trees down out here. Now what do you notice about the scale? They all get smaller the further back into the background that they go. Alright. Sweet. So we'll leave it there, and then what we'll do is we'll place in some branches. Now I really like the orange leaves in this one, so I think maybe I'm going to give these trees some orange leaves, maybe. Let's see how we go. They're going to look a little bit like this.
that's what I want to ask you because we're doing the alien environment.
Mm.
I realize that what you're what you're creating as an alien meaning is not in the human environment, correct?
Yeah.
So how does the bridge exist?
Oh, because it's like I said, it's kind of like the Predators. Have you played the Predators game before?
No, I don't.
Well, so the Predators actually come from this crazy like rainforesty planet, right? That doesn't have native humans existing on it, but that they end up going there for some reason or another, and they set up a little base.
Okay.
So that's basically what's happened here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can.
You can put.
Story.
Yeah, you can have some story. Like I said, I mean, write up a bit of a Word document description. That's obviously going to help you out.
Yeah, I did already.
And that's more for you guys' benefit than it is for mine. Why do we write up the document, guys?
There's an idea.
Gives you an idea, yeah. Helps you to begin visualizing things. You don't have to do it, but you probably won't be able to come up with anything if you don't. Alright, so we got those trees. Now we'll add in these other trees. Let's take a look. Better look here. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so again, I want to make sure that I'm composing this carefully. I don't want to be obscuring anything too much. In fact, I almost want to frame the key elements, the key focal points with the branches here.
How do you go about choosing the main color?
Yeah, again, that's more of a mood thing. So it's like, what kind of mood do you want to set your environment with? And also the time of day. Yeah, so this was at sunset, remember? And I kind of visualized this beforehand, guys, which helped out a lot. I had a pretty solid idea of where I wanted to take it in terms of visuals. So, yeah, I mean, it helps to think about that stuff. What I'm going to do next is just put some highlights on this kind of mossy area up here, but not too much. Because again, this is supposed to be moss, not necessarily water. It's going to kind of blend it in a lot. Like so. Then of course I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and I'm going to turn back my reference and have a look at some of these leaves. Let's check out some of Goro's brushes, see if he's got anything that could maybe help us out here. Oh yeah, that's what we want. That's looking good. Okay, I'm going to make a new layer, again, in case I mess up, which usually happens, from time to time, believe it or not, even to me. Oh, I can. Don't worry, I can. So now I'm just painting these in.
I guess you like your bonus. One of these you kind of look like it's paper attached to clean it off and
Oh yeah, I'm going to clean it up, don't worry. Okay, so then you've got these ones out here. Like so. have it. So the thing is, yes, we do need to clean some of this up. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm just going to go back to my eraser. I'm going to change my eraser to this same brush. It's going to begin erasing. So again, we don't want to obscure like the base. It's the last thing we want. Go back here. And the cool thing about this is we can now go back, maybe increase some of these highlights, and we can paint right over the top of these leaves. Again, you remember I said I wanted them to be kind of orange-ish. And I don't know if I'll still do that, but let's see. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'm just going to go back to a darker color. And go back to my chalk brush. Oh, I forgot these ones out here. Oh, you'd see them a little bit, but not too much. Alright, so now I'm going to go back to a really dark tone, and I'm just going to paint in the rest of these. And you can see how thin the brush is now. So I'm really trying to simulate some kind of bark texture now. And of course I'll go in and I'll begin blending those too. Select these darks. Keep on blending. I'm adding in some highlights to kind of, you know, again, make those trees pop out a bit. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. So again, if I want to make it so that these trees are kind of defined out of the background, all I have to do is create a layer below them and add in some fog. As soon as I do that, they're going to begin to separate themselves from the background a bit. Okay. Yeah. It really depends on what you want to do with it. Kind of. Alright, so again, I'm going to go in here now with my hard brush, and at this point, guys, honestly, it's just a time game, right? These details are pretty much the most time-consuming part of the entire painting. They're the easiest though, right? Most of the thinking is already done for me. Yeah, I've established the image. Now it's just a matter of making sure everything's defined and fleshed out, basically. Go in and again place some platforms in here. And you can see how thin I'm getting with my lines now. Again, that's breaking things up on an even finer level. So now I'm really articulating what is what. And it's important to kind of think about, like, even when you are first laying out this stuff, it's important to think about, okay, what do I actually want to paint? And what kind of forms are these? So remember I said that these cliffs were going to be mushroom shaped. Okay, so even then I was thinking about the forms. I wasn't just randomly laying things in there. And it's good to do that. You know, especially when you get to this point. It's like, well, you know, I had the broad forms in there. Now it's just a case of detailing those out. Rather than kind of only coming to this point and then thinking, alright, now what am I going to do with them? You know? Always begin with the end in mind. It's the best piece of advice I could give you. We're going to have some darker tones in here to help separate this roofed area from the side walls or the base. Again, really thin now, just gently brushing in some of these highlights. And slowly but surely it all begins to come together. And it's funny because you look at a finished one of these and you'd be like, man, where do I even begin with this stuff? Because it does look like so complex, like it would take forever to get to this point. It's like how, I mean, how long did it take this artist to put in all these rocks and all these plants and etc, etc. But yeah, it really doesn't take long at all. It's not really the way that it happens. It's more just detailing out these lines, and at some point it just begins to become more and more refined. Now, as you can see, we definitely got some hard-edged faces up here on some of these formations. I was thinking of doing that, and I don't think I'm going to do it until I get to a very kind of, you know, final stage. Yeah, I am blending with the brush I am using now, but I guess a 19 brush you don't have to blend as much because it blends automatically. It's a funny thing about it. But yeah, I'll use it a bit later maybe. I'm not too sure yet. I usually, because this is quite messy, I usually use the first 19 brush only for like characters and stuff that I really want to be refined. You know? And this is still messy. I'm refining it, but it's still pretty messy. So I'll worry about the 19 brush a bit later on. Yeah. Yeah.
But they still have
Yeah. Okay, and by the way, you'll see how I've got these grains kind of coming down the rocks like this. We can add secondary grains which go around the other way. Okay, so we could maybe add some formations in like this, some really, really light, subtle ones. Right. And then it really gets detailed. But I don't know if you want to do that too much. So again, guys, make sure you're always using that reference material, because that's what's going to help you to create an idea which looks a lot more interesting. You know, it's going to give you ideas. thinking about the thickness of the grooves in these rocks as well as I paint. So I'm aware of the subject that I'm actually painting. I'm not just painting blindly. I'm always thinking about, okay, like what kind of stone is this? How reflective is it? You know, how smooth is it? How thick are the forms in it? And as you think about these things and you find answers to them, to the questions you're asking, you want to be obviously painting them in such a way that you're presenting it with those qualities, okay, with those attributes. And of course, as I get lower to the bottom of this form, I'm going to begin darkening up the areas, okay, that are facing away from the light. Again, you can see, well, you can't really see, but I'm adding in these really, really subtle texture grooves. Okay. I might add in highlights here and there, depending on whether or not I need them. You can see this is getting quite detailed now. I'm looking down here in my Navigator panel to make sure that everything's coming together the way I want it to as well. These platforms over here. So I want kind of like this rocky base as well for the mushroom rock. I tend to incorporate a lot of mushrooms into my environment drawings. Just like their shape, I guess. Oh yeah, how did it go? Is it more to the joke?
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm not gonna do it now. I don't do repeats.
Oh, you don't do repeats?
No, until I mention.
Oh, come on. That's just mean.
The only mushroom related thing I've ever done is like literally the mushroom sculpture with some ground stuff.
Oh, really?
Well, I did it.
Why did you stop there, Troy?
Mostly because I couldn't do it with my previous design, or I had a just super buff mushroom person.
Alright.
What is it weird? But I think it would be interesting.
This is it's weird recently for this is almost like a little bit serene and nice, like you know.
Come on, really? It's dead and nasty in a serene kind of way. But yeah, I get what you're saying. You know, it's probably that warm lighting and stuff.
Considering like when you drew the dog, you know, with those horrible teeth, and it's always like it's Wonderland, but also it's horrible horses, you know.
Yeah. Maybe that's my thing.
No criticism. I just like
Yeah, I guess like I said, I kind of had this envisioned in my head where the golden light would be shining through the trees and stuff. I kind of like the idea of that.
Yeah, like I was wondering what you saw when you initially set out. Obviously, you
Yeah.
sort of fit that.
Maybe not. Maybe it's not as disgusting and unwelcoming as I wanted it to, as it should have been. Yeah.
Yeah, Brad was saying it doesn't really just
That's
changed
cool.
so much because just like he's already like you and him have a solid base of fundamentals that you
Yeah.
just do stuff and it's awesome. Like and he just keeps changing things.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like he didn't really have anything in mind when he started. But
Yeah.
he just kind of sort of did stuff and went with what was good.
No, I did have something in mind for this one. Like I said, I kind of envisioned this. It probably isn't an exact replica of what I envisioned, but it does capture the general like feeling of where I wanted to take it. So again, like I said, I wanted it to have that nice golden sunset. In terms of the rock formations, I don't know. Like I think they came out actually just the way I wanted them to as well.
Yeah, like they look really.
But yeah.
It's almost like you know those in the Nevada desert, and there's those weird things, those almost rock pillars that kind of stand up and have those big
Yeah.
but it's like if that was flooded.
Oh yeah,
You know,
that's
it's
awesome.
Like that kind of stuff. It looks awesome, but yeah, like I don't know, it's just like those horrible frog creatures. I started seeing them branded, yeah, that's like.
You don't see them jumping around?
Yeah. It ruined my holiday. It was a lovely
Oh,
destination.
come on, man. It doesn't look that lovely. Where are you going to pitch a tent here?
Probably where that
But yeah, no criticism anyway.
Oh, no, definitely.
I just wanted to-
It's a good point, you know, and it is something that you always want to be thinking about. I mean,
because I'm just thinking that it had to be more like
yeah.
that. I'm wondering if, yeah, like what we could have got
Yeah, like I didn't really picture anything grey and gloomy as such. But yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from, and I think it's a good point, so I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah. Alright, so again, we can put these really subtle textures in here. Just lines across the rocks, little textures. Now obviously this is closer to the camera, so we want some detail happening. So add some detail in here. And sometimes, guys, by the way, you can go ahead and I'm going to show you something in a little bit that I do like to do to kind of enrich the colors of my paintings, and I will actually do this on characters sometimes as well. I actually like to use a brush like this, for example. We scroll up here in the Adonis brush pack. You get this brush here. I think this is the one, yeah. Cool thing about this one is that you can go into like a red color and you can place it in here, right? Kind of. Just bring down the brightness. You can place it in, whoa. Place it in here, and I'll add some really subtle pink tones. And the cool thing about it is once those subtle tones are in there, you know, let's add in some blue. The cool thing is once those are in there, you can kind of blend them in together, and you get like these nice rich color schemes. So those blues I've just placed in there.
Looks like it's been more good for us. Can I get like amber lighting? You get a green and yellow.
Yeah. Okay, and then like once you've got those subtle tones in there, you can go back and you can just start painting them in, using them as a kind of color palette to paint with. And I find that, yeah, can really come up with some really nice results. You know, it just makes your painting look rich. Okay. So again, like we can come in here now and begin painting in some grains into the texture. These are very, very subtle, by the way, as you can see. Actually, I don't know how I feel about it now. No, it's not you. I mean, like, this particular rock. Not the painting overall. Alright.
Well, we started at 1, right?
We did, yeah. 50 minutes, yep. Alright, so we're gonna break in a second, I guess. And, yeah. I mean, yeah, it does... Like, for me, I don't know, like, there are some environments that I've really, really refined, and it's taken forever. But with the stuff like this, it's like, yeah, you know, it's not that high level, and it's not all that refined, so it doesn't take that long, you know. And after the break, what I'll do is we'll actually start adding in some texture overlays to some of this stuff, and to really, you know, again, just step it up to a higher level of detail. Sound good? So yeah, guys, I mean, like, after the break, I'd say definitely, if you haven't already, boot up Photoshop and get going on your image, you know. I'd say draw out a brand new one, you know, because it's going to be better, ideally. And yeah, see what you can come up with. Again, use reference, please, guys. Please do that.
I was actually kind of wondering how we would take that original stuff and do that.
You would have had to redraw it anyway, but like, I wouldn't say, you know, because a lot of the things that are off with your paintings are foundational in terms of composition. So yeah, just start again. You'll be better anyway. I mean, the only reason, again, like, guys, I want you to take, like, try and failing out of your vocabulary. All you're doing is you're learning or you're succeeding. One of the two.
What you're saying is I'm very good and very bad.
Like, oh man, I had this one student, and he was like, he's like, oh, I have a problem, and I'm like, okay, what's the problem? He's like, I don't know. And like, just almost everything, I'm like, okay, do you think it's this? Do you think it's that? It's like, I don't know. I'm like, no, yes or no. You know, and yeah, you gotta, if you don't know where you're going wrong, if you can't self-analyze, you're not gonna know what to fix, right? So, you know, look, I've probably got the biggest ego here, and I know it sucks to have to analyze your problems and your mistakes, but there's really no option. What's that?
Well, basically, in one set of course, a couple of you guys mentioned, like, you know, basically none of you guys are good because, like, not yet anyway. He's starting out.
Yeah, totally.
The thing, like, my problem's never been like self-analyzation. It's just my artwork's almost indistinguishable from bullshit. So
Yeah. Very funny.
That's what I constantly fall down.
Come on now. Okay, when I say analyze yourself in a constructive way.
Yeah, shit, I should start again, or?
Yeah. So it's like the asking the right questions. I mean, if you go, I suck, your brain's gonna be like, yes, you do. Yes, you do. if it's like, you know, if you're like, oh, it's too hard, blah blah blah. But like, when you start asking the right questions and you go, well, okay, you know, my artwork is falling down in this area, how can I address that? Then you're going to get better answers, right? So it's like, I mean, yeah, you can sit in a corner and cry about how much you suck, and you know, you won't really get anywhere because of that, and no one's really going to care. You're just going to be upset. So the other option is to actually, you know, nail it down and figure out where you're falling short, and then fix it. Like, for me, especially when I was learning how to draw characters, it's like, I knew exactly what I had to do to get better each and every time, because, you know, I'd do really well, and I'd get to a foot or something, and it would just come out, like, malformed. And I was like, okay, looks like I'm drawing feet for the next week. And, yeah.
I looked it up, and apparently
Yeah, they do.
I didn't find out like some comics they hide people.
Yeah, they do. Well, they used to a lot. I don't know if they do it anymore.
I don't know.
What I'm doing here, guys, by the way, is I'm kind of layering the bushes, so to speak. You know, and this is just going to help separate some of the main forms that the leaves create when they clump together. So that's important, you know, because that's how trees actually are.
Yeah, I saw a tutorial on that, but basically they just focus hair, but they got the base and they got some lines and they got some highlights over that, slowly just scan it like hair.
Yeah. It does. You know, that's the way all of these things happen, is they just keep going with them and they slowly, like, kind of begin looking, turning into a resemblance of your idea, right? Hopefully, ideally. There we go.
Oh, you just look at it, it's like,
Cool.
yep, this is what.
So we'll leave it there for a moment, guys, and I'll let you go on break and take a rest, and then we'll continue on after. Alright? And just begin finessing these details. Now, it was pointed out to me before. It was pointed out to me before. Is everyone comfortable with the lighting in here? Probably just switch on one of the lights over there.
Well, it's just so,
For the other students. For the other students, sure.
yeah, because you know, right at the dark one.
Yeah, just that one over there should be fine.
Which one is it?
Yeah, turn off the middle one. Yeah, okay, cool.
Just for you, Anthony. Just for you.
So, now what we'll do is I'm going to begin, because apparently this wasn't rocky enough, so I'm going to go back in there and,
Yeah, it looks like plates and dirt or something.
yeah, someone said that. So I'm going to go in there and I'm actually going to paint out some more of these rock textures, okay? And again, like, I probably should really have references for these rocks.
Why not just crash texture in?
I will later. But yeah, and it's just like breaking it up. And I guess, you know, one of the really cool things about doing a lot of comic book art is with comic book art, since it's kind of like black and white, you have to kind of nail down those textures and patterns as contour lines. And what happens when you do that enough is that you get a really good kind of familiarity with some of these patterns here, like patterns you'd use for rocks as an example. And that's how I can kind of define these edges here, because once they're defined, it's just a matter of like adding in the lighting and stuff. And I guess you get a feel for it after a while. That's one of the reasons I'm not using a reference as much as I normally would for the rocks. But yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead here and just maybe add in some actual rocks on top of this rock, and that'll make it look less like a plank of wood. It is a nice plank of wood, but it's not supposed to be. Okay, cool. I'll come over here, again add in some more of those darker tones just to break up the rock formations. And I might add some, because I remember before I was looking at these references and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I kind of like the way we've got these plants growing around the sides here, around the edges, so I definitely want to incorporate more of that into this image. I'm just going to go ahead in here and change up my brush for a moment.
I wonder if those rock mushrooms are actually mushrooms, the way they look.
No, they're not. What I'm doing is I'm just really tapping very fast, just these little paint daubs to indicate leaves, right? And here's how I do it. I kind of make a really dark tone. I go in and I define the those separations of the forms that the leaf clumps are creating, and then I'll go in with a lighter tone over the top, and I'll just paint them out, right? You get this kind of like layering effect. You guys see that? You can see how fast I'm working with it too. Again, it's like, yeah, man, I'm gonna have to like learn how to draw leaves now. But no, not really. You just gotta indicate them. It's more like the form. I think it's more the forms that leaves create when they're combined. That's what you gotta start out on, like those broader forms. Because we are working broadly here. We're not working leaf by leaf by any means.
Leaf by leaf would be like 3 month process.
Yeah, it would be. Definitely not be anyone's cup of tea, I'm sure. Okay. So again, once I've done that, what I can do is go in and just kind of add in, I think I'm going to add in more plateaus. Just another shelf over here. And I'm thinking of these as almost like, you know, those windowsill gardens. Alright, so that's what I'm going to basically put on there. I'll place these on.
So like fungus
Kind of is, but it's more like leaves. Does not look like leaves, Troy?
no, they do.
Okay,
The
good.
wooden bar.
See that?
Not for the job.
So guys, if you want to learn how to do leaves, it's just this. Literally, I'm just tapping away. Right? Like a finger painting.
Not just a painting, actually.
Yeah. And I just layer it up. I'll go down here, darken this up a little bit. And again, if it's too dark, I just kind of select a slightly lighter tone and I begin blending them together. Right. And again, I want to kind of indicate the actual faces of these stones here a little bit. Because you want to make it read well from a distance. You know, if I'm looking at this from a distance and all those details are just combining together into one undiscernible mass, then you know, the details don't really matter, right? So I got to make sure that I separate these forms in a way which is unmistakable. Like, the viewer can look at the image and know exactly what's going on. Okay, so, and I really want to work on this top area up here for this particular rock, because I'm definitely not happy with it. I feel like it's not quite the way I want it to be just yet. Now we're getting some really nice kind of colours in here. And we might go over again with another pass of leaves once we zoom in. You can see like just how you get these nice warm daylight tones up in the background, and then it comes down into the foreground. It's these nice cool almost blue tones. It's just a really nice complementary transition. You know, people love contrast. I don't know why, they just do. So whenever you can put like contrasting colors or tones in there, strategically of course, people are going to be drawn to that. People are going to latch on. Again, painting in these leaves here. And yeah, I know that's a little bit hard for you guys to see, unfortunately, but don't worry, I'll put this up on YouTube for you.
If you put it on the drive as well, just to finish
Maybe. Maybe Troy.
just in case.
No. Maybe. Let's see.
It's funny though how it all kind of leads back to our previous lessons. Because like what you're doing is particularly complex, but it's like how you're doing it,
Yeah.
where you're putting your highlights and the wide leaves and stuff.
Yeah, big time. Like all those foundations, you know, all those really silly exercises we did with the cubes and the spheres and all that other stuff. It's like, yeah, this is like basically that, but applied to something, you know. And that's exactly how I shade these forms, not necessarily on a conscious level anymore, but just as I work. And I think that's why it's important to do those exercises, because even if you don't notice changes right away, or you're wondering, okay, how is rendering this sphere or this cube actually helping me right now? At some point it just all kind of sinks in, and all that experience gets collected up, so that when you do something like this, when you do jump onto an environment painting, or a character concept, or whatever it might be, those things that you've been learning and experiencing just naturally begin to implement themselves, right? And that's why that homework and that practice is so important, because it really does make all the difference. Like, it'll make or break you as an artist, or in whatever skill that you're trying to develop. Everything takes time and practice. You know, obviously, being with me for 3 hours, as valuable as it is, once per week, is just not going to be enough to get you to that next level, to the level that you want to be at, necessarily. Sorry. Yeah, I do. Cool. So again, I'm going to put in some more plants on top of this rock here. Just make everything very rainforest. You know, I like this area up here because it looks so dead and muddy. Highlights. And again, what we can do once we're at that point is we can move in a bit, and we can begin articulating these forms even more. Okay, so I can go in with a darker tone, and I can begin like painting out the subtle grooves in this rock here. So I've got all the main forms in there. Now it's like going up to the secondary forms, the third level forms, etc. And it's basically just finer, more intensified, you know, detail lines or rendering, if you will. And, I'm thinking like we've done pretty well on this one today. Like we could probably do another one next week. And yeah, let's see what else we get done. Again, can add in some highlights as well on top of it. And here, what I was talking about with the leaves before, we can put in another pass. Or we just kind of, you know, add in even tinier leaves. right? Because again, those main forms that were created by the leaves are already in there. So now it's just like a matter of adding more leaves in there to kind of blend them out a bit. Again, it's almost like upping the res of your image to have more detail. Okay. And because we added in those reds as well before, there's some very subtle hue changes there that are looking very nice. And it does make all the difference. Alright. Go down here, again, paint out these plant areas. And of course down here. And up here is one of the main areas that I want to address right now. So I'm going to go in there and again, I want it to be a bit more like a mushroom. I'm going to go in there, give this a nice curved top. Select this shade here. Adding some really subtle highlights in here. And I want to give it this almost shell-like appearance, so it's this really kind of smooth, stony roof. Okay. Again, always be thinking about what is it that you're painting, what is the effect that you're trying to get. Because ultimately this is just a tool to do just that. Some more subtle line details in here, and again these are really just thin lines that I'm sketching in now. Super thin. I'm keeping it sketchy, keeping it messy. That's the best way I could describe this, is I'm literally sketching in these details. I think if you tend to think too much at this stage, it can, I don't know, cause the image to lose a bit of character. Alright, so it's looking a little bit better. Looking at my rock over here in the Navigator panel, and I don't think it's quite looking the way that I want it to at this point, so just going to darken it up a little bit by adding in some more grooves. Leave it there at the moment, for the moment I should say. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over here and begin kind of articulating some of these areas, because they're looking a little bit too messy at the moment. And we've only got a little bit of time left, so I'm going to actually begin wrapping it up. And maybe next week we'll bring this one back up and we'll just talk about how we would go about putting in texture overlays. And we could do that now in a moment, actually. Sorry. Okay. So, texture overlays. Let's see what we can come up with. Jump online. I'm gonna go desert. See if I can find some nice desert images. That desert cliff. Alright, so this is cool. What else have we got? This is nice. This is nice. When you're looking for these textures, you don't want anything with shadows which are a little bit too harsh. This one's nice, it's got some beautiful textures on here. So let's just copy this image in there and paste it. So what we could do is we could take this part, for example, right here. Control C, Control V, and then we could overlay it. Control Shift U to turn it black and white. Maybe. Let's just take down the hue saturation a little bit. What we could do is just increase the size of this. Maybe to about there. Control T. Hit our little deform button here. And this is where you can begin getting some really intense details. So what I'll do is I'll just copy that and move it down here. And then I'm going to erase some of this area. By the way, you'll notice that my eraser is kind of a painterly eraser at the moment. That's going to make things look a bit arty, which is good. A bit sketchy and stuff. Not always a bad thing. Yeah. So we can merge these together. Go overlay, take down the opacity a little bit, and we've got these really subtle kind of details in there. I don't know. You don't have to. You can kind of, again, it's one of those things that you can kind of just paint in if you want to.
Yeah. I remember with that environment stuff we did you like define some of the extra details and stuff.
Yeah. Like I said, you can do that. if you want to, but we'll probably just kind of paint it in there at some point. Really depends. So again, I'm going to jump in here and just again add in those overlays. Do image, hue saturation, take down the saturation a bit. And I'm just going to lower the opacity, like so. And again, it just adds a little bit more to the image, a bit of photorealism, which can make all the difference. Whoops. Yeah, as I said, once you've done that, you can of course go back and keep on painting this stuff in. Yeah. But let's talk about like what I like to do with, as a finishing touch with these paintings before we go. Again, there's a few adjustment layers that I like to use. One of which is the curves. Okay, and the curves allow you to basically adjust the contrast of your image and allow you to do so with an incredible amount of control. So what I normally will do is I'll just create an S curve. Basically that's something that looks a little bit like this, or like this, or like this, right? Don't want to go too crazy with it. I'll just leave that there. You know, just to make sure that we're getting the right amount of dark to light tones. And then we can go in and add a new adjustment layer. This one I like to call the color balance. What that'll do is allow you to give an overall tone of color to your image. Okay.
I don't remember his name, but one of your other students for the class, they used black and white just to tell forms of them.
Yeah, you can do that too, if you want to.
Just helps to see those blend in and then
Sorry?
You don't do a high pass on this one?
Oh, yeah, you can do it. Not necessarily. I mean, this one isn't as detailed, but you could do. Let's try it. Let's see how it will turn out. Merge layers, filter, other, high pass. Take it down to a 3.1. Then overlay. Yeah, that does look nicer. There is a difference there, a slight difference.
Yeah, the trees look more
Yeah, it does make it slightly sharper, but we didn't really do much there. Yeah, so, and the other thing is, I'll probably go back and do some adjustments here with this one. But that's very much the process, guys, so I reckon we'll maybe do another concept next time, because again, like, I haven't done these in a while, and every time I do one I get better as well, so it'll be the same situation for you guys.
So you want one of these